Good morning, Gary. How you doing? You well?
I'm all right. Good morning to yourself, Master Joe.
Yeah, man. Give thanks. Jazz Jamaica All Stars and Brinsley Ford, right? Catch a Fire.
That's right.
A Windrush Day celebration of Bob Marley and the Wailers at South Bank Centre's Royal Festival Hall on June 22nd. What can those lucky enough, Gary, to grab some tickets? What can they expect from that evening of niceness?
Some good music, of course, because that's what we're starting with. Obviously, a little bit of storytelling by Brinsley, who fortunately throughout his life has engaged with Bob Marley and the Wailers from their times that they spent in London, and just it's just the joyfulness of that music, and it's not only joyfulness because there's a lot of I was going to use the term spiritual, but I would say there's a lot of social statements in that music that is still functional and resonates today with us. So it's going to touch on everything that you want. A bit of fun, a bit of education, a bit of jump up, whatever, niceness, really. Good vibes.
Can you speak to being a part of the Windrush legacy from a musical perspective in 2023? What does that mean to you at this point?
Well, it means a lot to me because obviously my family members had come up in that period, but also it meant a lot to me in that I met a lot of musicians that told me about the difference of what Windrush had done. There were musicians, Jamaican musicians, that were based here before that time. They had been here from the 1920s. And they said that the Windrush, when the Windrush landed, it was almost like you were receiving like an energy blast from your history, like a plug-in back to the Caribbean and Africa. And they said that they became more confident, colors changed, the way they approached the music, they felt was more indicative of its roots, its African roots. You know what I'm trying to say? Yeah,
I do understand. Yeah, of course.
It was a way of plugging back into our history, really. Yes, that's what it meant for me.
So do you envisage the educational stuff being touched on by Brinsley kind of encompassing all of that journey? Is that something you envisage?
I think Brinsley's connection with the Wailers was physical when they were here in the 70s. He can speak quite fluently on that. But on the history of the Windrush and its effect on our people, I suppose we all have a view, you know what I mean? It's all the same view. And we use the same terms like maybe color changed in the country, the exception of color change. Definitely the drum became more prominent in, I believe, British jazz anyway. I believe the Caribbeans played a big part in that. If you look at some of the interests of some of the British-born white jazz musicians after the Windrush, it's slightly different. They're more aware of Caribbean and African rhythms after that. So the Windrush was positive for everybody, yeah.
Jazz Jamaica was formed by you in 1991. Is that right? Have I got my dates right, Gary?
Yes, I can't even remember back that far.
Well over 30 years ago, anyway. And over 30 years later, you're still considered one of the UK's leading good time bands. Talk about that journey. Did you expect to still be very much in demand in 2023?
Yeah. I hope that doesn't come across as sounding arrogant and anything, but that was what we started out to do. I think what I wasn't expecting is that I would still be at the front of that band. But the idea that the band, Jazz Jamaica, would carry on long after we've left was part of the plan. Yeah, I grew up reading things like Marcus Garvey, Frantz Fanon and all that. And I always dreamt about being able to leave something from, whether it's my people or the people I engage with in art, that can carry on, that can put food on their table. That was the idea of Jazz Jamaica, apart from the musical expression that we wanted to make at the time. The idea that it would act as a cash cow for young musicians coming into the music industry, and also for young musicians to learn about Jamaican jazz, which I do feel has been, since the 70s, has taken a back seat to other musics coming from the Caribbean. Not that it hasn't, you know, there's people like Cedric Brooks and David Madden who are still, you know, Monty Alexander or Alice Ranglin, who are still engaged with it, but it's not popular again. You know, you rarely hear instrumental music coming from Jamaica. And that was really my dream. And yeah, I'm very happy that 31 years ago, the band can still go out and put food on table. Yes.
The Queen's Medal for Music, the first jazz artist to receive one. Speak on, you know, that now that it's a couple of years after you've received that, the Queen's passed on, and just, is it significant? I guess it was a significant award when you received it, but even more so now. And how do you see that kind of milestone in your own career?
On a personal level, it was an exceptional situation to be in the room with the Queen of England, just me and her talking about music, you know what I mean? Considering, you know, the way I grew up, you know, I'm very strongly connected with Rastafari and those kind of issues. And there was a time when I was in the room and I kind of said to me, well, look at me. Is it hypocrisy I'm using, or is it strategy? You know, and I try to put myself in the position of being a strategic person. And there are things that I do that have nothing to do with me on an individual level. It's for the benefit of what I do. You know what I mean? There was a young bass player who said to me, the first time I was asked to meet Her Majesty, and I said, no, I can't do that because, you know, so and he made me realize that that some of us have to do things for the greater good. You may be, what is it? People will accuse you of so on and so forth, but you have to see the bigger picture. And yeah, and taking the Queen's Medal for Music was quite easy because I had already taken an OBE. I'd spoken with people I respect and trusted and asked them for advice on this. And for all the ones them that I loved and the ones them that I trust, you know, the Margaret Busbys, the Wilf Walkers, they were saying these awards are not for you. They're for what you've done for your community. So you have to look upon them as tools and weapons. I don't really want to use that word, but I couldn't think of anything else to push forward your agenda. And that's how I looked upon meeting the Queen. But on a personal note, I had a great day, and I changed my whole perspective of the Queen herself, you know, that human being, but also my whole perspective of where we are as a people and where we need to be over the next 100 years. If you look throughout the history of mankind, people from warring factions have met on the battlefield. They speak, what is the next move? And it's either peace meeting, or we go back to war, or we split up. You have to have dialogue. You know, so that's the way I justify those things that I've had to do over the last 30 years.
Yeah, interesting perspective, especially as a man hailing from Rastafari. It's always a interesting conversation because it's not aristocracy that's the issue. I guess it's just some of the issues that one has with the monarchy in this country and the history, right? So, moving on, where art is concerned, I guess the motivation changes, evolves over the years. I want to know what is inspiring you when music is concerned today.
Who and what and I add in life inspires me. Everything, that I see, sport. I saw the Adesanya MMA contest, and that just lifted me up for 2 weeks. Just watching that victory lifted me. So everything inspires you when you're, I believe, an artist. It's not just the art itself, but there are many young people in this country, and there are many old, mature musicians that inspire me. If you want specific people, though,
if you've got them, they come to mind. Give them a shout out. Why not?
One person that always comes up is Duke Ellington. And it's one person that I every time I get the opportunity to tell all of the other young black musicians and young white musicians that I work for, that is the master of our music, and the master of using art in a way to lift all humanity. If you check out Duke Ellington, his music's played in the concert hall, the dance hall, celebrity TV, like dance, ballroom dancing, but also, he went to Jamaica in '66, hooked up with Count Ozzy, and worked with people like that. He was that wide. So he is my go-to person all the time.
Tomorrow's Warriors, a pioneer and talent development agency, creative producer, learning and training provider, charity and consultancy specializing in jazz. I know they've produced this event, right? And I guess all of those areas that it encompasses and delves into are a reflection of you.
Yes.
You founded that company, so that you clearly, beyond playing the instruments, beyond listening to the music, are passionate about the industry and the different elements that surround it. So speak about how that's changed and evolved over the years, and just the fact that you did found that company how many years ago and it's still relevant today.
I'm part of a tradition of black musicians coming from the Caribbean that have tried to find their or protect their space within the arts field. I'm not the first. We can go back to the 1920s, the Leslie Thompsons, and then in the 1940s, the Jiver Hutchinsons and all that. And if you read whatever's written about them, they all had the same idea, is to create a big band that was economically viable, but also culturally had something to say to our people. So and also the Jazz Warriors in the 70s, which I was an important part of as well. So I've often associated with groups that do that. So I'm not the first, although I'm glad that people's acknowledged for what we've done. You know what I mean? Of course I'm happy for it, but we're not the first. It's necessary especially for our youngsters, to see other people that look like them owning things and those things that they own, they direct to help people related to them in a certain way. If you don't own anything, that means you're always at the behest and you're dependent on other people's friendships or people's love for you. And as we know, as grown people, that's never a secure position to be in. It never has proven to be, for our people, a secure position. We have to own it. So that was the difference that I've seen since 91 to now, is obviously the internet and the usage of it. How some of our youngsters have, and the confidence of the young black musicians around me at the moment is a lot different from even 30 years ago. My one worry is that the information they receive, where it comes from, I'm a bit worried about. When I was growing up in the 70s, I would go to Margaret Busby, even Linton and those like Linton Kwesi, those were the people that informed me about how to project future. I'm nervous about some of the things that have come up on the internet, telling our people we should meet on this day to complain about this, and these are things that haven't been discussed amongst us. I'm trying to avoid get myself in any legal problems.
No, I understand where you're coming from. Beware of the source of your information that informs you. I understand that.
Yes. That, as I said, we came from the 60s and the 70s. We were forced to read things by other black radicals from the earlier times. There was nothing else for us. You know what I mean? Of course, we added in a bit of the economics of Marx and things like that. But generally, it was Garvey and people leading from Du Bois and things. And once you lock into that kind of history, you're kind of locked in, you know? You're kind of locked in. You may make mistakes in your historical things, but generally you're locked in. But I do notice a lot of young people today, whatever comes on the internet and there's a complaint about something, they tend to take sides straight away without doing proper research. And the research should be, who is it that's telling me this news? That's important, because there is something called fifth columnists, where your enemy actually understands how you think and will prepare information in a way to make you feel, say, this is the truth. When, you know, I can't remember what my parents used to call it, but my dad's way of saying it would be, don't follow idiot. He would say, and you'd have to work out for yourself what he was actually talking about. Because, you know, he used to see guys come to the house. He used to say, I run houses at Parliament in here. And sometimes when they gone, I would speak with him and say, but the person who I chat, him not good shoes. Him can't tie properly and all and thing. And as you grow up, you realize these are all signs that you're supposed to witness. You know, if we really do care about these things that I hear a lot of the young people are talking about, then you do go and look at people like Margaret Busby, Imru Bakara, and these other people who have contributed, but in a quiet way. We actually can't. But the benefits is, you know, in the case of Miss Busby, she was the first black female book publisher, and she still engages in literature. You know, those are the things that count, because those things, she started that company in the 60s. It's still here. You know what I mean? It's still here. It's still contributing. It's still functioning. Those are what I want our young people to see, those things, you know, to look out for somebody like Wilf Walker and check out what has he contributed to our development artistically and socially. He was an important part of the carnival in the 60s and the 70s.